Hey, this time around I want to talk about how we teach front flip to beginners. This is just the way that I personally teach it. This is not the be-all and end-all or the only way that it can be done. So there's lots of other ways to do it. What we're going to assume here is that we have divers who already know how to do standing front jump. They can do hollow dive. They can do a front dive tuck. We don't want to teach a front flip to a child who has not learned how to do a front dive tuck successfully, only because it's going to make the front dive tuck very difficult to teach. When they get used to flipping over, they get ahead of themselves. So we want to follow the right order of operations here. Make sure we go with front dive tuck first, make sure that that's pretty well taught, and then move into the front flip. So our performance standards are front jump straight, front jump tuck, front lineup, front dive hollow or rainbow dive, and front dive tuck. The equipment that I'm assuming that we have access to, stack mats, foldable stack mats, you know, the stretching mats that fold into 6 different panels. We can stack those up and use those as a takeoff surface, like a soft platform. And then a training mat, or an 8 to 10 inch thick crash mat, nice and squishy. It's a good landing surface for the kids. Typically when we set up the training mat, as you'll see in the videos that are stitched in here, we like to put a mat underneath, a stretching mat underneath the training mat, the soft mat, just in case we have heavier divers, bigger divers who bottom it out. You don't want them to bottom out and make contact with the floor in a way that can be uncomfortable. So if we've got our stack mats, now the first step we're going to go through here is we're going to make sure that our kids know how to do front rolls. We can teach those on stretching mats. Make sure the kids know how to do that without bumping their head on the floor. A lot of kids, when they first start to do front rolls, will not support with their hands adequately, and they tap the top of their head on the floor. What we want to do is really emphasize making sure that the head never touches the floor, the hands are firmly planted, and that they roll smoothly across their back. As they're recovering the front roll, as they're coming around and they're coming to their tailbone on the roll and headed up, a lot of times kids will end up with their head lagging back behind them. That's not a good pattern that we want them to get into, so we want them looking forward as they roll up, trying to get a view of what's out in front of them. This is especially helpful when you have a line of children who are all doing front rolls one after the other. You want them looking forward to make sure that they don't roll up on the kid in front of them. But of course it also teaches proper head position in the somersaults, and it puts the head in an orientation that allows them to see what's going on, so that we're right from the very beginning helping kids to learn to see as they somersault. Use their eyes, use their visual cues. Okay, so once we have a diver who can do a front roll on the mats, like this.
Good, one more.
Then we can have them come back in and do that same roll from a stack mat onto a training mat, like this. Now once they've done front roll on the training mat, our next objective is to try to, of course the whole time that we're doing this, we're making sure that their head's not touching the mat as they roll over. Now the next step is they're going to try to do what I like to call a popover, where it's sort of a front roll, except that they want to try not to let their hands or their head touch the mat. So they're going to use their legs, they're going to start with their knees bent, they're going to push strong with their legs, they're going to start with their arms in a low position over their ears so that they're protecting their head in case they mess it up, and they're going to pop over to their back using a strong push from their legs. And you can see that in the video right now.
Yeah!
Once a diver has got a pop over going, it's consistent, they're not touching their hands to the mat, they're not touching their head to the mat, then we can start to have them slowly raise the arms a little bit higher, push a little stronger, and move gradually, step by step, toward a full-on front flip. So here are a couple of examples of the various stages of building toward a standing front flip on the stack mats.
Go. That's what I'm talking about. Go. Good. Yeah, there you go. You got to push even harder. Oh, that's good.
Now you've got a kid who has some understanding of how to do a safe front flip. What we're looking for as they're doing those front flips on the dryland stations, on the stack mat, is that they're keeping their head stable and starting the somersault with their hands and their legs. They're not burying their head. That the somersault is traveling forward a reasonable distance. You know, that they're at least landing a foot away from the takeoff mat. That they're doing it reasonably consistently. Factors that are going to improve the somersault: a stronger push from the legs, a long straight arm throw that moves quickly and that moves simultaneously with the push. So the push and the throw have to come together, and the throw has to have a long radius, and it's got to move quickly. It's got to accelerate quickly through space. So we're looking for those things, as well as a smaller tuck to improve the quality of the somersault. So now we start to see all of those elements coming together in dry land. We can move to the water. We can do several drills in the water that are going to help kids get prepared, even if they're not doing a great front somersault on dry land. One of the things they can do is they can use a stack mat, just like we do in front of the training mat. We can put a stack mat on the edge of the pool. We can do it lengthwise so that they roll down the length of that stack mat. It's already folded up. The edge of the stack mat terminates right at the edge of the pool, and they do a front roll into the water. Here, for a better explanation, let's just take a look at it. Now those wet mat roll-ins are very helpful to get a diver oriented to what they're going to do when they come out, how they're going to feel. It builds confidence. It's a lot of fun for the kids too. Once they start on that, then they can move into a standing front flip with a hand spot off the side of the pool, off of the stack mat. I do not like to have kids work on front flips off of the bare edge of the pool. Too scary. The edge is very hard, and if there's a mistake made, somebody's really going to get hurt. So I like to have that stack mat at the edge of the pool, and then I can stand right next to it. I can get my hand in, and I can help them to do a somersault. So you can see an example of that here. So now you've got kids doing a standing somersault off the side of the pool. Once we move this skill to the diving board, I prefer to have the diver do a hop before the flip. So they're going to start about 1.5 feet away from the end of the diving board, depending on the size of the child. Smaller kids start a little bit closer. They're going to start with their arms straight up in the air in an H position, 2 feet together. They hop with 2 feet all the way out to the end of the board, and then with no arm circle, they're just going to push and throw into the skill. When we start this, we start by teaching them a front dive tuck with this skill. So it's a hopping front dive tuck. And then once that's consistent and all things are looking good there, then we'll have them move on to a hopping front flip tuck. And that's generally the simplest way to gain a little bit of forward momentum. The child can get a little bit of forward lean, and they're moving forward as they're hopping, and that's going to help us to make sure that the first few of them have enough forward momentum to get them up and away from the end of the diving board. Things that get you in trouble on front flip are burying the chin, so they look straight down at their feet as they start to throw. That tends to cause the hips to go backward and cut it close to the board. Scary stuff. The other thing is just a very slow throw, or a bent arm slow throw, so the somersault doesn't rotate very quickly. And then having a big tuck, you know, they hold the tuck with their knees way away from them. That causes them to rotate slowly, and they will tend to go short, land on their rear end or on their lower back. So those are areas where we want to watch out. But those are the progressions. Those are the things you got to watch out for, and that's generally speaking how I like to teach a front flip tuck to a beginner. I hope this helps, and I'll see you at the pool.